Chapter 51 Aurora's Birthday 2. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. The five girls entered the restaurant and Aurora walked them directly towards the salon. When the four girls saw the salon, their breath was taken away. It is as beautiful as the pictures posted online. Megan thought a while, admiring the decoration of the restaurant. After they admired the salon for a few minutes, they saw the tables were put next to the stage, where the beautiful piano was placed. There they saw two people talking, and they both were so beautiful. The woman gave them a mature and gentle feeling. She looked stunning with stylish clothes and tied purple hair. The man was the most handsome man they had ever seen. His silver ash hair was tied in a ponytail and his black clothes gave him a bad boy vibe. It was then the man heard them entering and looked at them and smiled. When he smiled, the five girls melted. Especially the four new girls that weren't used to Theo's charm. "Hey, Cupcake, come here!" he exclaimed. It was then that Aurora ran towards him. He hugged her and patted her head. "You look stunning, sunshine." Theo smiled at her. And that she was. Aurora looked stunning. She was wearing a casual gray dress with flower details that made her look casual and pretty. Her hair was tied in a pretty way that Theo didn't recognize. And she used light makeup that made her look even more beautiful. "Thank you, brother," Aurora replied with a sweet voice. "Happy birthday, little sis." Aia jumped on Aurora after Theo let go of her. Aurora smiled and hugged Aia too. Through these weeks, Aia and Aurora became even closer to each other. So, Aurora appreciated Aia's enthusiasm. Vivian, Kerala, Omaru, and Megan heard all of that, and they couldn't believe such a handsome was their friend's brother. And he was the owner and the head chef of such a prestigious restaurant. "Brother, big sis, these are my friends from school," Aurora said after Aia let go of her. "Vivian, Kerala, and Amaru are my classmates. And Megan is my senior and the president of the fighting club," Aurora said while pointing at her friends. "Girls, these are my big brother Theodore and our friend Aia, she also works as the second chef here in this restaurant." Aurora introduced them to her friends. "It is a pleasure to meet you, ladies." Theo extended his hand to shake the girls' hands. "Thank you for taking care of Aurora." Theo smiled. The girls were dazed by his smile as they shook his hand. Megan was even more shaken. She was in the last year of high school, and she wasn't interested in high school boys anymore. And when she saw such a handsome boy that gave such a mature look, she instantly developed a crush on him. But she became somewhat down because she saw that Aia was one of the most beautiful girls and she looked more mature. She thought that Theo would prefer more mature girls. They started talking and the girls noticed that Theo was a great talker, and he could talk about anything. While they were talking, the guests started arriving and it was 8 p.m. all the guests arrived. Theo talked with Sam and Sayuri as Aia observed them. Aia learned that not only his restaurant, but his other companies were successful too. Then Theo and Aia went to the kitchen to bring the appetizers. They placed the appetizers on a table where anyone could come and take them to eat. "Guys, the appetizers are here," Theo shouted and everyone looked at them. All of them were hungry and went there to take a piece. And they were all addicted to the food after started eating. "It is so delicious," they all thought. Aurora was talking with her friends from her old high school while Theo and Aia went to the kitchen to finish the main course. The party was enjoyable for everyone. There was a song playing and if someone wanted to dance, they could. Theo put some board games if they wanted to play it too. He even placed a karaoke machine. Aurora's friends from her old and new high school loved the party. Theo's employees loved it too because they could drink and talk while eating delicious food. Later, Theo arrived carrying the main course. He made lasagnas that were sufficient for 100 people to eat. The guests served themselves and when Aurora's friends tasted, they went wide-eyed. It was so delicious that they couldn't stop eating. Theo ate too. He was seated at a table with Aiya, June, Sam, and Sayuri. And Aurora was with her friends. Do you guys like it? It is a different type of lasagna. Theo smiled as he sipped the wine. You are the boss because of that. Sayuri exclaimed as she ate. They all laughed and continued eating. When they finished, Theo brought another bottle of wine. The dessert was ready, so he could enjoy the party now. The party continued and most of the adults in the room were drinking and talking and a few of them were playing games with the teenagers. I have something to tell you guys about June. Sam exclaimed. Come on, tell us quickly. Aiya exclaimed, she always was curious about funny stories. The other laughed and June could only shake her head with embarrassment as she knew exactly what Sam was going to tell. There was one day that June and I were going to the class, and she stopped at a grocery store to buy some stuff that I don't even remember. Sam started. It was water, and that was for you, you ungrateful friend. June exclaimed. They all laughed at that. Well, she went there, and I stood outside waiting for her. It was then that I saw a dog far away at the end of the street. But it was too far away, and I didn't want to leave June alone. Now you guys must be asking, why is there a dog here in this story? Sam said in a dramatic way. You guys may not know but June is obsessed with dogs and every time she sees one, she had to pet them. Now, coming back to our story. I was waiting for June when she exited the grocery store with a bag. Okay, she gave me the water and we started walking towards the class. And it was then that she saw the dog. She started waving frenetically at the dog until the dog saw her. Sam stopped talking and had to try to not start laughing. The dog saw her and started running towards her. June even started saying to me that she was able to attract the dog. But when the dog was like 10 meters away from us, we noticed that he wasn't stopping running but it was already too late. The dog ran over June, and she rotated in the air and crashed on the ground. We had to even go to the hospital, but she didn't break anything, it was just the trauma of the crash. Sam exclaimed. Oh my gosh! Aiya shouted. They started laughing really hard. Some people are run over by cars, but June was by a dog. Sayuri shouted while laughing. Oh God, I am going to die. This is so funny. Theo said as he had a laughter crisis. Hey! In my defense, I had just bought some snacks and the dog probably smelled that. June said with exasperation. He probably thought you were there to sell some stuff and he didn't press the brake button of his car. Aiya said. They laughed even more. They shared even more funny and embarrassing stories while drinking wine. It was an enjoyable time for all of them, to drink good wine with good company. Chapter 52 Aurora's Birthday 3 You are listening at novelfull.audio. Theo talked with the girls until he saw it was time to serve the cake. Aiya, help me bring the cake. Theo asked. Sure. Aiya replied with a smile. We will be going. You girls can continue drinking. Theo said with a smile as he exited the table. We will. Sam exclaimed. Theo and Aiya arrived at the kitchen and started preparing the plates of the cake. After 10 minutes they went back to the salon with the cake. Theo observed that all the guests were having fun. Aurora was playing a board game with her friends. So, he got up to the stage and turned on the microphone so that all the guests could hear him. Hey, guys! Theo said with a gentle voice. All the guests turned their heads and saw again the silver-haired handsome guy that was Aurora's brother. I would like a moment of your attention. We will be serving the cake in a few moments and singing happy birthday to Aurora. The guests started to get closer to the stage and saw a beautiful red cake that looked delicious. Aurora also arrived at the stage and had stars on her eyes. But first, I would like to give my gift to my sister. Theo went towards the piano and sat in front of it. I would like to play a song for my sister. Thank you for being with me throughout all this time, Cupcake. Theo smiled at her. Aurora instantly became flustered, and with a red face, she smiled too. Theo placed the mic down and got ready to play. He practiced these 2 weeks and he got better and better. Theo was now not just someone who got the skill from the system. With his enhanced intelligence, he was able to increase his proficiency at the Grandmaster level. He paused with his fingers on top of the keys of the piano. He gently started playing. He started playing Ballad Poor Adeline. As he continued playing, Theo forgot that tens of people were watching and solely focused on the song. His fingers danced on the keys and the sound made by their dance it was pristine. The guests were in a trance as they listened to such a masterpiece. Even the teenagers who didn't like classical music. This was the skill of a grandmaster pianist. Theo had the power to his emotions in the song and enchant his listeners. Ballad Poor Adeline was an emotional song and Theo placed his emotions for Aurora in this song. Aurora had tears in her eyes as she listened, she could feel her brother's emotions for her and she knew what he was saying. All these years that they were fighting to survive in this world while barely eating every day. The sadness and loneliness after their parents died. She felt it all. Theo ended the song with a gentle touch. A while later the guests were still immersed in the aftermath of the song. Theo started playing another song. It was Summer by Joe Hisaishi, a song from the soundtrack of Spirited Away, a movie from Studio Ghibli. One of his favorite movies. The song was joyful and made those who had heard feel the desire to smile and think about the happy times. Theo's fingers danced the happy song while he smiled as he played the song. The guests started to smile too. They were infected by the happy song. The image of Theo's smile as he played like a master the piano was burned in the minds of the young ladies that were present. Aurora had the sweetest smile on her face. She felt that this happy song was her brother's promise of the happy times they would experience from now on. And she loved it. Theo ended the song and his fingers stopped dancing on the keys of the piano. As soon as he stopped, the guests took some time to digest such a masterpiece. Aurora's friends were even more shocked. They came from prestigious families and they had to practice music since they were young. So, they knew how to differentiate an amateur from a master. Theo's play sounded like the great masters renowned throughout the world. Megan, Vivian, Kerala, and Amaru were particularly even more shocked. Aurora's brother was a genius chef and now he was grandmaster pianist. That was unprecedented. Meanwhile, Aiya, who had observed Theo practice every day these weeks, was proud of him. Aiya was a master violinist, just a tiny bit away from the grandmaster level. She knew how talented Theo was and she was even more proud of him. But as soon they noticed that the song stopped, they stood up from their seats and started clapping loudly. Theo also stood up and faced the crowd and gently bowed. After the crowd stopped clapping, Theo picked the mic. "Thank you, that was my gift for you, sister." Theo smiled. Aurora nodded and smiled. "How about we hear some words from the birthday girl?" Theo smiled. "Yes." The crowd shouted with passion. Theo laughed and called Aurora to the stage. She was shy but she went, nonetheless. "First of all, I would like to thank my brother for everything he did and still does for me. I couldn't be here without you, big brother. I love you," Aurora said with a big smile. Theo smiled when he heard that. "And secondly, I would like to thank each one of you that came here to celebrate my birthday. Big sis Aiya, thank you for helping my brother too." Aiya finished her speech and gave the mic back to Theo. "How about we sing happy birthday to her now?" Theo asked with enthusiasm. "Yes," the crowd said. They sang the happy birthday song as Theo brought the cake to Aiya to cut. Everything went well. The crowd sang and afterwards, Aurora cut the cake. Everyone had a piece of the cake. And it was perfect. It had such a unique taste of strawberry and something else they couldn't recognize. It was the secret ingredient that Theo and Aia placed in the cake. And it was a success with the guests. After everyone ate, they went back to do what they were doing before Theo started playing the piano. Theo went back to his table with Sam, June, Aia, and Sayuri. Aurora also wanted to seat at their table, so they went for a bigger table. Aurora's friends were also seated at their table. Megan, Vivian, Amaru, and Kerala wanted to see what these young adults were talking about. Theo, you are a beast. Not only you are a genius writer and a genius chef. Now you are a great pianist. That's crazy. Sayuri said, exasperated. The girls who didn't know of his other gifts became even more flabbergasted. He was indeed one of a kind. Sure. Theo smiled dismissively. They started talking and telling embarrassing stories of each other. Aurora told a story where Theo fell inside a hole in the street because he was too distracted. She even said that they had to go to the hospital because he broke his arm. They laughed so hard. They couldn't imagine that the young, elegant, and refined Theo could be so distracted. Theo could only laugh in embarrassment. Aurora's friends didn't say much, but they enjoyed the atmosphere and hearing these stories. The party ended around midnight as all the guests left. But it was a memorable night for all of them. Chapter 53, Getting an OP item. You are listening at novelfull.audio. That same night, Theo just finished taking a shower and he was laying on top of his bed when he said in his mind, "System, show me the earlier notifications." As soon as he finished playing the piano at the party, the system sent a bunch of notifications. But he ignored them because he would rather enjoy his sister's birthday party. Ding! Congratulations! You completed the mission. It is time to shine. Description. It is time to experience new things and enjoys this life. Requirements. Play the piano for an audience of more than 100 people. Calculating grade of completion. Ding! Mission completed. Grade S+, recalculating rewards. Ding! Rewards issued. You received $1 million. You received 2000 EXP, you received advanced singer skill. Ding! Congratulations! You have leveled up from level 6 to level 7, you received 4 free attribute points and 1 lucky draw ticket. Theo was flabbergasted when he saw the notifications. I received double rewards. Theo said with excitement. It was totally worth it practicing these weeks. But I thought I would only receive an S grade at best. It was probably the way I played. I played the best I could and with that, the grade increased to S+. I guess that's why the rewards doubled. $1 million. That is going to replenish my dried bank account. An advanced singer skill. This is much better than the intermediate skill. And I even leveled up. System, assign 4 points to intelligence. The same process that Theo was familiar with happened. After a while, he said in his mind. System, show my status. Ding! Host. Theodore Gray level 7, 0/5000, age. 18 cash, $1.1 million, in his personal bank account, net worth, $6.31 million. Business companies owned. 100% shares, Blue Cloud Coffee Shop, $600,000, 90% shares, Fuji Jump Co. $1.21 million, 100% shares, The Spark Restaurant, $4,500,000, attributes. Strength. 20 intelligence. 27 vitality. 20 charm. 20 free attribute points. 0 lucky draws tickets. 1 skills. Business management. Level 8, 156/8000. The ability to manage a business to success. Food beverages. Level 8, 500/8000. The knowledge to create and make food and drinks to perfection. Host gains knowledge of the secrets behind the food beverage. Grandmaster fighting experience of the myriad of styles, level max. You possess the fighting experience of grandmasters of over 1,000 styles of fighting. You have all the knowledge, all you must do is to practice to be a real grandmaster. Your training is thousands much faster than a normal person. Arts design knowledge skill, level 6, 1567/3000. The knowledge on how to draw aesthetically and on how to design myriads of projects. The chef of the gods skill, level 1, 510/5000. You have the ability to transform simple food into a dish revered by the gods. Director and editor skill, level 4, 50/1000. The ability to direct live-action or animated movies to perfection. And how to edit them, perfecting the directed cuts. Grandmaster piano skill, 550/5000, advanced singer skill, 0/1000. My status didn't change much. Only the addition of 2 skills and the increase of the intelligence stat, Theo thought as he looked at his status. System, spin the lucky draw for me. Theo said with enthusiasm. He always got some useful stuff from the lucky draw. It seemed that he was lucky in this life. Opening lucky draw roulette, Theo saw the roulette spinning. Around 1 minute later, it stopped spinning. Ding! Congratulations! You received the house retrieve card. What's that? Theo asked for the description of the item. House retrieve card. Select a building, land, project, and design the house of your dreams. Press the card and in 10 days, the house will be ready as designed by the host. Oh my god, Theo shouted. This is so OP. Theo was in disbelief. Theo could project a house worth billions and sell and be a billionaire. But he guessed the system wouldn't permit that, as it said it had to be the house of my dreams. But the house still will be worth some millions of dollars. Well, I could build and pay with my money. But that would take time as my companies still are at the development stage and I cannot take too much money from them to build a millionaire house. Adding the construction time of the house, it would take years for the house to be ready. But now I can project and design it and 10 days later the house will be ready. Theo had shining eyes of excitement. I will buy land in the outskirts of the city. I want my house to be connected to nature. Maybe connected to a lake or a forest, but at the same time, the house must be close to the city. I don't want to take hours to go and come from my house every day. I don't want the house to be too big. As it is only me and Aurora. It would a pain in the ass to clean. And I don't want to hire an army of cleaners. I should ask Aurora what she would like to have in the house. What if I put a gym for Aurora and me to practice? Theo brainstormed multiple ideas for his dream house. Theo went to sleep that night thinking about houses. The next day, Sunday. The restaurant reopened today with full force. The clients were avid to taste the delicious dishes and enjoy the beautiful scenery. On this day a short middle-aged man entered the restaurant. His name was Luis Pratt. He was shorter than most men, but he exuded confidence, nonetheless. He was a food critic of the most important newspaper of Elfire City. Elfire City was the capital of the state of Bluecorn. And consequently, it was one of the biggest cities in the country. Being a food critic of such a big newspaper gave Luis great confidence. Lately, he heard of a new restaurant that opened in town. All the clients who went there left full of praises for the place. Luis was curious and reserved a table. Luis liked to pick the tiniest wrong details in the restaurant he visited. He gave bad reviews for multiple restaurants in town, and he was hated by most chefs. That's why he had the nickname Snake Tong. Because he only had poisoned words to say. And even though he only gave bad reviews, he was popular with it. He was one of the most famous critics of the newspaper. This night he arrived to look at the Spark restaurant and give his bad review tomorrow at the newspaper. But would he be able to do that? Chapter 54 Food Critic Visit the restaurant. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Louise Pratt arrived at the Spark restaurant and observed the surroundings. He had to admit that it was a good location. The place was in an upcoming neighborhood with multiple parking lots for the client's vehicles. He stopped at the front door of the restaurant and analyzed it. It seems a little simple, no? Louise started criticizing already. He entered the restaurant and the first thing he saw was the greeter counter. At least they placed the greeter counter is in the right place, he thought as he remembered some restaurants that seemed like the greeter counter was hidden. Good night, sir, how may I help you? Kyo, the greeter said. I have a reservation under Louise Pratt. Louise replied as he looked at the surroundings. He noticed the waiting room and it was acceptable but not good in his opinion. Here it is. If you may, sir, you can follow our employee and he will show your table. Kyo said as he pointed to Sarah. She was one of the employees responsible to show the clients their table. Okay, thank you. Louise replied. Follow me, sir. Sarah said with a smile. She was already experienced at this job, and she loved it. Sarah was a college student that studied engineering at Bluecorn State University. But she didn't come from a wealthy family, and because of that, she had to work to complete her money for her monthly expenses. Her parents usually sent money for her, as they didn't live in Elfire City, but she still had to work. She worked in multiple places, but ever since she started working at the Spark restaurant, her life became much better. She worked only at night when she didn't have classes. She had a great boss that didn't abuse his employees. And on top of that, she received the triple of money she got from her last workspace. Adding all these reasons, Sarah was great at her job because she was happy to do it. Louise noticed that this girl seemed truly sincere with her smile. It seems the employees have a great attitude. Well, at least the ones I met until now. Louise thought as he followed Sarah. It was then that he entered the grand salon of the restaurant. And he almost had a heart attack with what he saw. He still followed Sarah, but he seemed in a trance as he looked at the scene. He remembered the times when he was younger and went camping with his family and they used to have dinner with the starlight shining upon them. He became emotional. He never imagined that a day would come where he couldn't think straight while evaluating a restaurant. Here, sir, you can have a seat. Sarah smiled as she gestured to a table. Thank you, young lady. Louise replied as he came back from his recollection of memories. A short while later, a waiter arrived. Good night, sir, here is the menu. If you have any doubts, you can ask me, the waiter said. Thank you. Louise Pratt replied. Louise returned to his professional self and analyzed the menu. He noticed that the menu had 3 options of meals. He also noticed that the menu contained information on dishes he never heard about it before. What would you recommend to me? Louise asked. This question was a trick question that he asked every time he went to evaluate a restaurant. Because depending on the answer of the waiter, he would have a good or a bad meal. If a waiter, who worked every day at the restaurant, didn't know which dishes were good. Or if the waiter recommended according to his taste and didn't consider the client's taste, it would be bad, and Louise would be writing bad reviews based on that. Sir, if you are up to something light and fresh, we have the vegetarian menu. Even if you are not vegetarian, you will like it. If you are up to something more exotic and different, we have the ocean menu. This menu has unique and beautiful dishes with fresh ingredients from the sea. But if you want something with more taste, I recommend the red menu. This menu has the main course that is the most famous dish of the restaurant, the waiter replied to Louise. He didn't completely answer the question and opted for an introduction of the menus instead. Louise had to admit that the waiter had the skills and didn't fall for his trap. Louise thought for a moment and spoke. Give me the ocean menu. He didn't opt for the red menu because you learned more about a restaurant from their less famous dishes. This was a saying he usually says as he judged restaurants. If even their medium dishes were good, it showed that the restaurant had great quality. What he didn't know was that the three menus of the Spark restaurant were equally good. And the red menu was only more famous because it was different from anything else in the market. "Thank you, sir, in a few moments your appetizer will arrive," the waiter said. The Spark had a digital system. The waiters all carried a digital tablet that had a system of orders installed. As soon the client ordered their dishes, the waiters sent the information of the menu chosen and the table that ordered the menu. The information was sent instantly to the kitchen, where a big screen was situated. The cooks could see the orders and start cooking much faster. On the big screen, it could be seen which dishes they had to make at the moment, and which ones were late. The cooks only had to lift their heads to see if there are more dishes to make. When the cooks finished a dish, they ring a bell and the waiter would bring it to the right table. It made the service of the restaurant take a great leap of quality. Luis was at his table, and he observed the salon. He noticed that the salon was full of people, it did not exist an empty table. He also noticed that clients were full of smiles as they ate. "At least, the others are enjoying. Let me see if you can make me bend," Luis thought playfully. 7 minutes after he ordered, a waiter arrived with his dish. Luis was surprised by their speed. It seems that the kitchen is doing a great job with the speed. But let me if they are doing a good job with the taste, he thought as he thanked the waiter. He observed the dish, and it was beautifully presented, he had to admit. It had seaweed and fried shrimp, he noticed. Luis wasn't much impressed. It was common to have an appetizer like at sea-themed restaurants. But as he ate the food, he froze. 55 Chapter 55 You are listening at novelfull.audio. Luis Pratt never tasted something like that. The flavor was something so new that Luis could not recognize it. "It is the sauce," Luis noticed. The sauce made a common appetizer leap to be one of the best appetizers Luis ever tasted. "What sauce is this?" he whispered. Luis couldn't recognize the sauce, and he became even more surprised. As a food critic, he was very knowledgeable about food. Not recognizing a sauce that the chef used here in this country came as a surprise. If he was in another country with a different culture, he would not be as surprised. Luis could not find any flaws with the dish, and he ate it with satisfaction. 10 minutes after his appetizer arrived and 5 minutes after he finished eating it, the main course arrived. Luis was surprised again by their speed. This must be where their quality drops. It is not possible to be this fast and the dish be good, Luis thought as the waiter arrived at his table. But as soon he saw the main dish, he was mesmerized. The dish seemed like someone cut a piece of the sea and placed it on the plate. The crystalline brilliant broth looked like seawater, the fishes swimming in the broth and the condiments giving an exotic feeling to the dish. Someone must have superb talent at the presentation of dishes in this kitchen, Luis thought as he picked a spoon to taste the dish. He first tasted the broth. And he became shocked once more. The broth had such a fresh and exotic taste. He felt like he was at the beach eating a dish of ingredients fresh taken from the sea. The flavor had such a unique and wonderful taste, he couldn't find any flaws in the dish. He savored the dish with full concentration that he forgot that he was there to make a critic of the restaurant. Luis became like everyone else that entered the restaurant, and addicted to the flavors presented. He finished the dish with a satisfied sigh. This was so delicious. And this isn't the most famous dish in the restaurant. Now I want to taste everything that they serve. Now there is only the dessert left. I won't make more assumptions, I am tired of being so surprised, Luis thought. 5 minutes after he finished eating the main dish, the dessert arrived. He observed the plate, and it was another beautiful dish. On the flat plate, a souffle was placed. It seemed that was taken off the oven recently, and on top of it, sugar was distributed. It looked cute and delicious. Luis picked a spoon and opened the souffle. He noticed that inside of the souffle it had a filling that made the souffle moistened. Whoever ate the souffle wouldn't have to worry about being dry, different from other soufflés that were too dry. Luis tasted it and it was surprising yet again. The sea was on the dessert too. The sweet seaweed gave such an exotic and wonderful flavor. This is indeed the ocean menu. I can see the sea in all the dishes and all of them are so perfectly placed together. The menu tells a story. First, it is the entrance at the sea. We see seaweeds and shrimps and the sauce is a novelty. Second, we arrived in the middle of the sea, we are fishing, swimming with the fishes. And the main dish transmits this feeling. And as we go back to the shore, we see seaweeds again but this time it is sweeter because we successfully fished. Luis was mesmerized as he finished his analysis. The head chef is a genius. Luis thought as he finished eating the souffle. He called the waiter and asked for the bill. He paid and stood up to leave. As he was leaving, he observed the clients that were eating and all of them had a face of enjoyment. He went home and when he arrived, he started writing frenetically his review. A rare time was going to happen tomorrow, only a few restaurants of Elfire City managed to take a good review from the Snake Tong and Theo's restaurant was going to join them. That same night, Megan visited Theo's restaurant with her friends. She was a little nervous after expending time talking to Theo and his friends yesterday. She entered the restaurant and was guided to her table. She had to admit that the restaurant looked different compared to yesterday. It gave a comfy and refined feeling. Instead of the joyful feeling of Aurora's party. Megan and her friends ordered the red menu. They all heard Megan talking about how delicious lasagna was and they were curious about it. Then suddenly a silver-ash-haired girl stopped at their table. "Seniors, what a surprise to see you here," Aurora said with a smile. As soon as she saw Megan and the others, she came to say hi to them. "Yeah, I made a reservation last week, but I couldn't imagine this was your brother's restaurant," Megan said with a smile. "Okay, haha," Aurora laughed. "When you girls finish, if you want, I can show you the rest of the restaurant," Aurora offered. "We would love to," Megan almost shouted. It was an opportunity to see Theo again. Aurora left them to enjoy their dinner and went back to help June. "Megan, you are too excited," a green-haired girl said with suspicion. "Yeah, the whole time she has been like that," the brown-haired girl said. "Is Aurora's brother handsome?" a golden-haired girl asked. Megan shifted her gaze and didn't say anything. "Oh my gosh. He is. You are such a bad friend. You didn't even warn us," the green-haired girl said. "I totally agree with Chica," the black-haired girl seconded. "You didn't ask," Megan said as if she didn't do anything wrong. But the girls noticed that Megan was nervous. They couldn't help becoming curious about Aurora's brother that could make the ice-violent queen of Yukiheim High School so bashful. Megan had that nickname because she was cold to everyone in school and if someone annoyed her, she would beat them. But very few people dared to annoy her after she beat the first guy who did it. And throughout the evening, they enjoyed a fantastic dinner. The girls had to admit that this was one of the best meals they ever had. They all came from big families, and they knew how to differentiate a refined food when they saw one. They finished and Megan promptly called Aurora. "Did you girls enjoy the dinner?" Aurora smiled. "Hell yeah," they replied. "Great, let me show you around then," Aurora said. They toured around the restaurant and Aurora showed that the restaurant was even more beautiful than they thought. When they came to the kitchen, they saw the cooks cooking at full speed to deliver the dishes. It was then that the girls saw the most beautiful man they had ever seen in their lives. Now they understood why Megan was infatuated. Theo lifted his head and saw the girls through the glass wall. He smiled and waved at them. The girls had multiple butterflies dancing at their stomachs by now. They left the kitchen and toured around the upper floors, and afterwards they went home dreaming about a silver-haired chef. Theo once more enchanted girls with his smile. Chapter 56 Print Factory and Finding a Property. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Important notice guys, I'm gonna establish a system of rewards to release extra chapters per week. 150 plus power stones equals plus 1 bonus chapter, 300 plus power stones equals plus 2 bonus chapters, 450 plus power stones equals plus 3 bonus chapters, 600 plus power stones equals plus 4 bonus chapters. The next day in the morning, Monday, October 5th. Theo was at a huge building that looked like a factory. Machines being assembled by workers could be seen all around the building. The building looked like it was recently renovated and had a neat look. Theo and Sayuri invested a total of $1.5 million. Theo invested $1.2 million and Sayuri entered with $300,000. She had 10% of shares of the company, so she had to help Theo. And she helped happily, knowing that the company her dad founded was becoming famous nationwide. This was the new printing factory of the Fuji company. Boss, even though we will only finish the assembly of the printers in 2 days. We already increased the production of copies. When the assembly is finished, we will have the capability to deliver 2 million copies monthly to the market. And consequently, we will produce 500,000 copies per week. Sayuri said to Theo as they toured through the factory. Theo nodded. That is good. We will finally be able to enter the national market. You should start the negotiations to deliver the Naruto mangas to the rest of the country. Theo said. Yes, we will take care of the orders that were postponed. In total, according to our estimation, we will sell at least 1 million copies of the Naruto manga monthly. Sayuri replied. Then we will be able to launch new projects. You can start the advertisements of the Hataraku Mount.sama manga to launch by the next week. Theo said as observed a manga page being printed. We are ready to launch the Hataraku Mount.sama manga, we were only waiting for the expansion to happen to make it happen. Next Monday the manga will be at the bookstores. Sayuri replied with conviction. Theo was satisfied with the efficiency of Sayuri and her team. I sent you a document with a new light novel that I wrote. I want you to review it and adjust if necessary. But only if necessary. After review, I want to release this light novel in 2 weeks, if possible. I also sent you the second volume of the Naruto manga for the editor team to see it. I want to release the second volume next month. Theo said as he walked. Sayuri wasn't even surprised of hearing that her boss also wrote a light novel. We will work on it. Why the rush to release this light novel? Sayuri asked. This light novel is a vital part of my plan to make my company even more successful. Theo replied with a mysterious smile. Theo planned to launch his first anime with this light novel. He couldn't produce the Naruto and Hataraku Mount.sama animes because they had to release at least 10 volumes of manga to start producing the animes of these works. And because he could only release 1 volume per month, it would take time for him to launch the animes of these mangas. But the Sword Art Online light novel was different. The original Sword Art Online had 26 volumes. Launching 1 volume per week, he would release the last volume in 6 months. And in these 6 months, he could start his anime studio and start producing the anime. Sayuri was curious, but she didn't meddle. She trusted Theo completely. Theo exited the factory with a bright smile. LC everything was going well, and he was happy about it. Theo entered his car and went towards a real estate agency. He wanted to look for a property for his house. But his requirements for the land were strict, and he didn't know if a property the way he wanted, existed here in Elffire City. He wanted a land that was by the city forest of Elffire City. This forest was enormous, and it went through the whole northern section of the city. The northern section had this forest, that was preserved by the state, and no one could cut its trees. But because it was a beautiful place, and it was so close to the city, it was too hard to buy lands there. And if there was land available, it would be expensive. Theo arrived at the real estate agency that was specialized in properties at the Pedroruna forest. It was a fancy building that seemed to scream expensive. The business must be booming, Theo thought. Theo went in and asked to see the available properties. Sir, we have multiple options available. Which requirements are you looking for? How many bedrooms? Pool or no pool? The real estate agent asked multiple questions. My requests are that the property must be by the Pedroruna forest, and the bigger the land the better. I am looking for a land to build a house from scratch. Theo replied. I see. Let me search for available lands to build houses, the real estate agent said. He searched for 5 minutes and found a list of options. Sir, these are the available properties, the real estate agent said as he passed a list of the properties and their characteristics to Theo. Theo looked, and the more he looked, the more he was shocked. It was too expensive. The cheapest property was 5 million. It is important to remember that these properties are only the land with nothing built on it. Some properties were so expensive that he didn't even look at them. These lands were expensive mostly because of the location. And some because they were located by lakes that were by the Pedroruna forest. Who wouldn't like to live by a lake and close to the city? Theo didn't like these properties. And he didn't have money to buy them anyway, at least not for the next months. Theo continued to go through the list, and it was then that he saw the last property of the list. His eyes lit up as he saw the description of the property. This property wasn't located by the forest. It was inside the forest. The property was on a hill full of trees, which made it difficult to climb. And the property was the hill. So, the buyer would buy a gigantic property, a hill. But everything wasn't beautiful as it sounds. Because it was forbidden to cut the forest trees, it was impossible to build anything on the property. How to move the construction equipment, material, and other miscellaneous things, through a hill that was already difficult to climb normally. It was only possible by air, and that would increase the budget of the construction, exponentially. And because of that, no one wanted the property. But even with the impossibility of construction, the property was priced at $1 million. It was crazy. And the only thing built there was a wooden cabin. It was one of the most expensive cabins of the world. Theo thought, but he still was excited. Even if the others couldn't build there, the system could. And none of the trees would be cut down. Theo brainstormed multiple ideas as he looked at the property details. I would like to see this property, Theo said to the real estate agent. The agent was surprised when he saw which property the client chose. Are you sure, sir? It is almost impossible to build something there, the agent asked. Don't worry. I will build, and I won't cut down a single tree of the forest, Theo said with a confident smile. The agent was taken aback, but he agreed. He thought that this client was too rich. The only method to build there was to transport the materials by air. And that would be too expensive. Okay, I understand. We can visit the property today, the agent said with a look of understanding. Theo only nodded. He knew what the agent was thinking, and it would be good if he continued guessing that. Later, Theo visited the property and he fell in love with it. It is perfect, he thought as he looked towards the city from the top of the hill. I will buy it, Theo said to the real estate agent that was panting behind him. The agent had real trouble while climbing the hill and had to make a huge effort to follow Theo. If he wasn't accompanied by Theo, he would be lost in the forest, and he wouldn't be able to go back. The hill was too steep and had too many trees. It was easy to get lost. I will start the request, and in 2 days the property will be yours, sir, the agent said between breaths. Now, how can I design my house? Theo thought as he climbed down the hill with an exhausted real estate agent. Chapter 57 Inspecting the Property. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Important notice guys, I'm gonna establish a system of rewards to release extra chapters per week. 150 plus power stones equals plus 1 bonus chapter, 300 plus power stones equals plus 2 bonus chapters, 450 plus power stones equals plus 3 bonus chapters, 600 plus power stones equals plus 4 bonus chapters. Bonus chapter. That day, Theo almost arrived late for the night service of the restaurant. Because climbing up and down the hill of the property at the Pedroruna forest was too hard. Even him, with his enhanced physique and senses, almost got lost in the forest when they were climbing down. But he was happy with the difficulty of climbing the hill. He thought it would be another security measure for him and Aurora at their house. Theo cooked normally that night. He also noticed that the demand was becoming too high for only 6 cooks. I should hire more cooks. The orders are leaving a little later than I want. Theo thought as he finished the service that night. Thinking about that, Theo went to June to talk about it. Hey, June, how was the service today? Theo asked her as he arrived at her office. Boss, we managed to book all the private rooms for the entire week. So, we are sold out for the entire week. It seems that a food critic of the Elfire Journal wrote a good review about the restaurant. And because of it, the restaurant became even more famous citywide. June replied as she looked at the numbers of today's service. And it happened exactly that. Louise Pratt, aka the Snake Tong, wrote a review about the Spark restaurant in the daily edition of the newspaper. The review was like a balm to the readers of the journal. It was a rare occurrence to read a good review from the Snake Tong, and every restaurant that earned a good review from him were renowned restaurants nationwide. As one of the biggest cities in the country, Elfire City had a share of the best chefs in the country. And reading that a new restaurant shared the same privilege shocked the readers. They became avid to taste the dishes of the new restaurant. Especially the high-class citizens of the city, who could afford to pay for the private rooms of Theo's restaurant. It is exactly because of that I came here. The workload of the cooks is becoming too heavy for only 6 cooks. I want you to call for an interview for assistant cooks. They don't need to be too experienced. But they can't be too old too. The openings are for 3 assistant cooks. Theo said to June. I will take care of it, boss. Until the end of the week, the candidates will be ready for you to interview. June replied. Thank you. Theo nodded and smiled at her. It is great to have someone to take care of these things for me, he thought as he appreciated June's work. They talked more as they exited the restaurant, as it was already late. 2 days later, Theo was at the real estate agency signing down the contract of purchase of the land at the Pedroruna forest. Thank you for doing business with you. Theo smiled at the now old owner of the property. Same here, the man replied. Theo exited the building with a contract on his hands. Afterwards, he went towards his house and placed the contract inside a safe. This safe was where he kept the original documents of all his properties. I should keep these documents inside a bank or a safe with more security. Maybe I can put a vault safe at the house. Theo brainstormed another idea about his house. After leaving his apartment, Theo drove his car towards his new property. He wanted to inspect the whole land. Only by seeing the whole property, he would be able to project the house in the best way possible. He parked his car at the end of a street. This street was full of mansions. As they were located at a great location and close to the city. From where Theo parked his car to this restaurant or company's office, it would take at the max time, 30 minutes of driving. And a huge city like Elfire City, 30 minutes driving to the destiny, it was nothing. At the end of the street, it was where a hill full of trees was located. And consequently, it was where the Pedroruna forest started. But it was also this part of the forest that Theo bought. Theo exited his car and started looking around. Theo liked this property because it was isolated, but at the same, it wasn't isolated. His house would be close and at the same time, his neighbors wouldn't be able to see it. He entered the forest and started walking around the perimeter of the property, which was also the perimeter of the hill. The hill had a 2-kilometer base and 500 meters of height. The hill was super steep and full of trees, so he would take some days to inspect the whole property. He started walking through the forest and after 1 hour of walking, he saw some squirrels, birds and a pack of deers. This forest is indeed protected by the state. These animals exist here so close to the city. Theo thought after some time, he arrived at the back of the hill and stopped to take a rest. He looked upwards and saw the top of the hill was not visible with all the forest surrounding it. He also remembered that from the street it was not possible to see the top of it either. This is perfect, Theo thought as he stood up and continued his inspection. After a few hours he arrived back at the street. He went all around the perimeter and that took hours because he had to look at everything carefully. It would take days for the whole property to be inspected. And for the next few days, Theo walked through the whole property. He took pictures, draw some sketches, observed animals that frequented the hill, and all other types of inspections. One day he noticed that the hill had the ground made of stones, the stones that named the forest, Pedreruna. And because of it, the hill was absurdly firm. Theo was relieved. It was often usual to see hills collapsing after heavy rains. But because the hill was made of stone, his house would not collapse after raining. On the last day of inspection, Theo climbed the hill to the top. He wanted to verify the space up there, to see if it was large enough for the plans he had. And he was pleasantly satisfied as he looked at the top of the hill. The top of the hill had at least 300 meters of length and 500 meters of width. It seems that I will be able to project some neat stuff, Theo thought as he looked towards the city. The top of the hill had an amazing view of the city. It was possible to see the whole city sections. North, south, east, and west. And finally, it was possible to see the commercial district with its huge skyscrapers towering over the city. Theo took a picture and took the measures of the place. Afterwards, he started heading down the hill. But as he was leaving the forest, he heard a weak cry nearby. He was intrigued and followed the sound. It was then that he saw a heartbreaking scene. Chapter 58 Saving a Kitten and Hiring New Cooks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Important notice guys, I'm gonna establish a system of rewards to release extra chapters per week. 150 plus power stones equals plus 1 bonus chapter, 300 plus power stones equals plus 2 bonus chapters, 450 plus power stones equals plus 3 bonus chapters, 600 plus power stones equals plus 4 bonus chapters. Bonus chapter, Theo saw a little black and white kitten shivering and hurt. Oh gosh. Theo's heart was pained. Who did this to you? Where's your mommy? Theo said as he got close to the kitty. The kitty only gave a weak meow as a reply. You must be hungry and cold. Aren't you? Theo said as he extended his hand to pat the kitty. The kitty couldn't even answer Theo's caress. I can take her to the veterinarian and check on it. Why don't you come with me? I will take you somewhere warm and safe. Theo said as he tried to lift the kitty. But the kitty seemed to be wary of him and dodged his hand. Theo then spent 10 minutes trying to convince the kitty to come with him. When he finally took hold of the kitty, Theo smiled brilliantly. I will take care of you. Theo thought as he walked back to his car. And like that, Theo went to the veterinarian clinic and they said they would take care of the little cat. They would call him, if something happened or if the kitty was ready to be charged out. It isn't so bad adopting a cat, right? Our family wouldn't be just me and Aurora anymore, Theo thought as he went towards the restaurant. Today was Saturday, the day he finished his inspection of the property and the day he would interview the candidates for assistant cooks. The cooks were starting to become too tired during the service because of the heavy workload. Theo needed new cooks to take of the demand. He arrived at the restaurant and entered by the back door. His employees were already there. Aiya, Kimiko, Lauren, Shoko, and Max were talking, when they heard the door opening. They saw a silver ash-haired man entering the kitchen, wearing casual clothes, but that made him look even more handsome. "Hey, guys, good afternoon. I said you didn't have to come. It is going to be a hassle, this interview." Theo smiled at them. They all smiled too. For the last 3 weeks Theo became more familiar with them and treated them more like a friend. Aiya smiled too. She had a surprise candidate for the job, and she wanted to test that person. "It is going to be fun." Aiya giggled inwardly. "So, how are you going to test them, boss?" Max asked. "Basically, the same exam you guys went through." Theo replied. "Oh boy, it is going to be fun to watch." Lauren laughed. They started talking while waiting for the candidates to arrive. After half an hour, they started arriving. Theo observed them, and it was then that he saw a familiar face. His eyes went wide as he looked at the person. Arai Shizuka was standing there with the rest of the candidates. Her black hair, fair skin, and glass-clad red eyes made her look the most beautiful and professional of the candidates. These last weeks, Theo and Aiya became even more familiar with each other. Especially after Theo discovered she was the daughter and granddaughter of his friends. And the thing that Aiya was afraid of, Theo and Aurora becoming strange after they discover about her family, did not happen. Bedo dem she became relaxed after her parents talked with her on the night they discovered she was working for Theo. It seemed that they thought highly of Theo after he saved her grandpa's life. Imagine the surprise she became after knowing that. She hugged Theo and thanked him profusely the next day after knowing that. Theo now considered Aiya a close friend and they became more familiar. And with that, he learned that Shizuka was adopted and that she had tons of jobs to do. And because of that, he was surprised to see her here. Shizuka didn't move to talk with them. Aiya said she wanted to pass the interview with her own efforts and didn't want people to think she passed because she knew the staff. At the combined hour of the interview, all the candidates arrived and waited for instructions. "Good afternoon, let me introduce myself." Theo commenced the exam with cooks the same way he did Kimiko and the rest. There were 10 candidates, and the interview took some time. Theo was thankful that Aiya and the others came to help him, or the interview would take a much longer time. At the end of the interview, Shizuka was, without a doubt, the best cook of the candidates and passed the interview. Theo, Aiya, Kimiko, and the rest were amazed by her skill. She was almost on par with Aiya. Theo wanted to hire 4 assistant cooks, but because Shizuka was too good, he only needed to hire 3 cooks now. And with Shizuka taking one of the vacancies, there were only 2 vacancies for 9 candidates. Theo, Aiya, Kimiko, and the rest discussed which cooks they liked more. They had an intense discussion for at least 10 minutes when Theo left them with a decision made. He hired 1 guy and 1 girl. They were not the best candidates, but they weren't the worst either. His name was Masuda Kin, he was 26 years old, he had some experience of working in some medium restaurants. Her name was Gwen Tulip, she was also 26 years old, and she used to work in a famous restaurant in town, but the restaurant closed and now she was unemployed. They were not the best candidates, but Theo and the others noticed that they were the most respectful to them. All the others were older and with much more experienced, and after seeing the chef and the cooks of the kitchen were so young, they became less respectful. There was hierarchy necessary inside a professional kitchen. If it didn't exist respect, the kitchen couldn't be successful. Kin and Gwen were ecstatic when they heard they passed. They never thought they would be working inside such a famous kitchen. That night, Shizuka, Kin, and Gwen did not cook. They only observed how the service went. Tomorrow they would start cooking, and because of that, they paid extra attention to how Theo and the others cooked. After arriving home from the restaurant that night, Theo started studying. These days, Theo also started studying how to project houses. He signed for architecture and engineering online classes to learn how to project his house. He only had an arts and design skill, the skill didn't show how to project houses. It only gave him the knowledge of artistic designs. When he designed his restaurant, he only gave some sketches and specified how it wanted to look. And the construction company saw that and projected the building from my scratches. And the decorations of the restaurant did not need architectural and engineering knowledge to design. But now Theo had to project the building from the scratch, and he needed specified knowledge to do that. He wanted to project some machines that would be vital to his house. He studied multiple subjects of engineering. Chapter 59 New Proficiencies and Skill. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Important notice guys, I'm gonna establish a system of rewards to release extra chapters per week. 150 plus power stones equals plus 1 bonus chapter, 300 plus power stones equals plus 2 bonus chapters, 450 plus power stones equals plus 3 bonus chapters, 600 plus power stones equals plus 4 bonus chapters. Normal release chapter, Sunday, October 11th. Theo just finished having lunch with Aurora. She went towards her room to do her homework. She always did her homework early, because she would go to the restaurant at night to help with service. Theo was in his room, watching an online class on structural designs of buildings. In the last few days, his knowledge about architecture and engineering took a great leap. With his enhanced intelligence, he could remember everything that the teachers taught in these classes. He finished watching the class and started thinking about what he studied and how he could apply it to the project of the house. Then, suddenly, he heard some sounds inside his mind. It was a bunch of system notifications. Theo looked and saw the system notifications. Ding! Congratulations! You learned the architect skill, ding! Congratulations! You learned the electrical engineering proficiency, ding! Congratulations! You learned the civil engineering proficiency, ding! Congratulations! You learned the electronic engineering proficiency, ding! Congratulations! You learned the mechanical engineering proficiency, ding! You learned another one skill and mastered 4 knowledge proficiencies with your own efforts. The system will issue a bonus mission as a reward. Ding! Bonus mission. Creation, description. You have released multiple works from your past life. It is time to make something new. Requirements. Create a manga or a light novel. Rewards. 4,000 EXP. $5 million. Grandmaster musical proficiency. What? Theo shouted in his mind. Theo was frozen for a few moments as he looked at the system's notifications. Let's analyze the first few notifications. It seems that learned one skill and a few proficiencies. But what's the difference between skill and proficiency? Theo asked the system. Skill is an immediate knowledge. Meanwhile, proficiency is harder, and with more studying involved, I see. So, that's why my current proficiencies are so hard to increase. Theo thought. System, retrieve architect skill, Theo said. The familiar feeling assaulted Theo's mind for a while. Afterwards, he inspected the knowledge and saw that now he knew much more about how to design buildings. Theo observed his new proficiencies and sighed with enthusiasm. He was indeed studying these 4 areas of engineering. First, civil engineering was the knowledge of how to project buildings and other structures. Theo wanted this knowledge because he wanted his house to have a safe structure. Second, electrical engineering was the knowledge to design components, electronic components, power grids, communication systems, and more. Theo wanted this knowledge to project the energy system of the house and a unique communication system. For example, Theo wanted to install a diesel-powered generator in the house in case of emergencies. He also wanted solar energy to power the house. Third, mechanical engineering was arguably the broadest of all engineering degrees available and takes a wide range of disciplines. It basically involves the design of mechanical systems that can be used in manufacturing, aeronautics, nanotechnology, nuclear power production, heating, and cooling. Theo wanted to project some unique machines, elevators, heating systems, and more. Fourth, and lastly, electronic engineering, or computer engineering, study the information technology industry. This engineering involves both computer sciences and electrical engineering. And with that, someone proficient in it will work with telecommunications, networking, software application development, network security, and others. Theo wanted to develop a software that would be responsible to control and secure the house. With these 4 proficiencies, Theo would be able to go crazy with his inventions. It seems I will have to increase my engineering proficiencies to intermediate level, only then I will be able to start projecting. But with my enhanced intellect, it won't be difficult. Theo thought as he looked at the rest of the notifications. It looks like I earned a reward bonus mission because I learned many proficiencies in a short amount of time. Theo smiled with enthusiasm. But this mission will not be easy. I never created something like this before. Theo thought. I should go with a light novel, it is easier to create it as I don't have to create and draw character looks. What can I write about? Theo was lost in thoughts. Theo decided to first project his house, and afterwards start thinking about what to write. The project of his house was already a little overwhelming and he needed to study and work at the restaurant. Theo arrived at the restaurant around 4 p.m. that day, accompanied by Aurora. He entered the kitchen and saw that new and old kitchen staff were already there, ready to start working. Good afternoon, guys. Theo said with a smile. Hey, Theo. Aiya replied with her usual happy voice. Hey, boss. Kimiko and the others also greeted him. Shizuka nodded at him with her usual serious face. Meanwhile, Kin and Gwen were so anxious that they couldn't even reply to Theo. They were going to cook inside one of the best restaurants in town. Theo called them for a meeting before the start of the job. June, did you increase the order of supply of fishes? Theo asked June, she always participated in these meetings. They had a meeting about the service for around 10 minutes. Afterwards, June went back to her office. Theo and the others, on other hand, started to cook. They always had to start cooking the lengthier procedures early to meet the demand of the service. In total, they would cook for around 6 to 7 hours per day. And doing that every day was becoming tiresome. Theo was considering implementing a day off during the week after his mission ends next week. He would give the Monday off to the employees. He also wanted to do other things at night sometimes, and because he was working every day at night, he could not. Theo noticed that Gwen and Kin were too nervous while cooking, while Shizuka was calm as always. Before the service started for the day, he called them aside and spoke. You don't have to be so nervous. Just be yourself and cook with your heart. You have talent. Just follow the instructions of your seniors and don't mess too much. Theo said to them with a reassuring smile. They became somewhat calmer. I can do this, they both thought with determination as they took a deep breath to calm down. The service was a little messier than usual. Theo, Aiya, Kimiko, and the others already had chemistry while working together. Introducing 3 new people in the mix would inevitably mess up with the routine. Even the calm and talented Shizuka messed up some orders. She was not perfect after all. Theo and the others didn't scold them either. They knew it would be a hard process, but it was necessary for the restaurant. After the service, Theo, Aiya, Aurora, June, and Shizuka went to the second-floor lounge to watch a movie. 10 minutes after they climbed up, Sam and Sayuri arrived and joined them. Ever since Aurora's birthday, this little group became much closer with each other. They often chatted online through a chat group that had every one of them. Hey, guys, I brought some beers. Sam shouted with excitement. Girl, we have work tomorrow. June said, but they could see she could not stop looking at the beers. Say that after you stop drooling. Theo said with a laugh. They all laughed. Don't even talk about work. I have to wake up super early tomorrow. Sayuri whined. Your boss must be a tyrant then. Theo said with a serious voice. Everyone didn't talk for a second, and 1 second later they all exploded with laughs. It's your fault, Ticho. Sayuri shouted while laughing. They spent a great time watching a movie and drinking that night. She was only joking, but tomorrow was indeed a big day for their company. It was the day their company would be launched countrywide. What would happen to it? Chapter 60 Greedy Vultures and Hopeful Girl. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Monday, October 12, Sakura City. The capital of the Sakura Abode country was a gigantic city, with more than 15 million citizens. It was one of the biggest and most important cities in the world. The city was the amalgamation of the mix of cultures from Yamato and Pendragon clans. There were old stone buildings, large windows, dot-centered arches, straight vertical and horizontal lines in tracery from the old Gothic architectural style of the Pendragon clan. There were also the traditional Yamato buildings with wooden structures, elevated slightly off the ground, with tiled and thatched roof and tatami floors inside. In the middle of these buildings, there were huge skyscrapers with modern architecture. Even though Sakura City values the heritage of the two clans, it didn't lose its modern touch. Actually, Sakura City was the most modern and technologically advanced city in the world. Even though there was fierce competition between Alabaster City, the capital of the Bald Eagle country, and Sakura City. Inside this bustling city, existed a fierce competition between enterprises to best the others. The Sakura Abode country had a population of 350 million citizens, and there was always demand for new products. Especially in the entertainment industry. There were always new products being released, but few could be considered a success. The manga industry was one of the most profitable in the country. The country was known globally for its mangas and animes. There were animes, there was a sensation all around the world. And because of this scenario, the companies were always attentive to their competitors and for new potential writers and mangakas. In a large street in one of the commercial districts of the city, a middle-aged man wearing jeans pants and a manga-covered t-shirt was seen walking while talking on the phone. Yes, boss, I will go to the grocery store and buy an edition. The man said over the phone. George Takeda was born from the union of Pendragon and Yamato descendants. He worked as an editor in a publishing house situated at Sakura City. The company was not the most famous or larger publishing house. But they were able to rope some talented mangakas, and they published some medium-famous mangas. They were even able to adapt 2 mangas to anime versions. The adapted animes were not too famous either, but it was already an achievement to be able to come this far. The company was going well until last year, but lately, they were having trouble finding good stories to publish. All their stories that they published in this time were a failure with the public. And because they were adopting drastic measures to poach new mangakas and writers. They wanted to steal talented mangakas from small companies by offering them a greater proposition. But the contract these mangakas would sign had a catch: they would practically not be able to write anything for no one else. They had to work exclusively for their company for at least 5 years. If the writers didn't pay attention to the contract, it was like they were selling their souls to the company. But even the company, knowing that doing this was unethical, they still went through it. The company already managed to hire some good mangakas. They instantly regretted signing the contract after they saw the conditions. But maybe because of the pressure and dissatisfaction, these mangakas could not produce good mangas. It was then that everything went downhill. There was a leak in the company. And it became known to the market that the company was forcing mangakas to be their slaves. The company boss was livid after he heard the rumors. I only made an exclusive contract, he roared. But the public opinion was already made, even if it was just an exclusive contract. It was unethical to hide such an important item from their employees. And because of this scandal, no writers wanted to go to their company anymore. The company sank into an even bigger crisis. George entered the bookstore and searched for his target. After a while, he found a manga with a blonde boy in orange clothes. Naruto, George said as he looked at the manga. Lately, there was chatter about a good new manga being released. His company heard and ordered him to investigate. He bought the manga and went towards his company's office. After taking the subway, he arrived. As soon as he arrived, he went towards his boss. His boss always wanted things as early as possible, even if it wasn't his work hours yet. He knocked on the door and waited. "Come in," a stern voice said behind the door. George opened the door and walked in. "Boss, I brought what you asked," George said as he placed the manga on the table and looked at his boss. His boss, Peter Green, was a man in his 50s. He worked in this company since he was young, and he was a key figure of the company. "Thank you, George," Peter said with a calm tone as he took the manga to read. George waited. He knew his boss didn't dismiss him, so he had to wait. For half an hour there was not a sound inside the office as Peter read the manga. Peter's eyes lit up as he read the manga. This is it. The salvation of the company. Peter thought. Search immediately for the publishing house that released this manga. Peter ordered George with a hasty tone. Yes, boss. George took his laptop and started searching for the Fuji company. After half an hour, Peter was finishing reading when George finished his search. Boss, the name of the company is Fuji Jump. The company is located at Elfire City in Bluecorn State. The company was having money issues until they were bought by a new owner and released this manga afterward. George said. This is perfect. Peter exclaimed. The mangaka will not know of our bad reputation and we can even acquire the whole company if necessary. Peter thought. That is not good. If I notice that it is possible others will notice too. I must hurry and go towards Elfire City. Peter anxiously thought. Reserve a ticket to Elfire City, we are going there as soon as possible. Peter ordered George as he stood up to tell his plan to his boss. And like that, people were going towards Elfire City to score an easy win for their publishing houses. Meanwhile, in the other part of Sakura City, a woman was carrying a box in her arms as she walked without direction on the street. Her name was Ryoko Riverdale, and she was 24 years old, with a short height, blue hair, green eyes, and a doll face. She was a beautiful woman. And because of this beauty, her career was ruined. Well, it was only because of a bast **** who could not be a normal human being. It was not her fault. But she felt it was, even if it wasn't. Ryoko finished her university studies last year. She graduated in animation works. She always dreamed of producing and participating in anime. It was her passion. She was one of the best students in the class, and with her good grades, she managed to secure an intern job in a big studio. But it was then that her nightmare started. Her boss, a disgusting fat man, became obsessed with her, and after 1 year of him trying to get her, he framed her with a petty motive, saying if she didn't sleep with him, he was going to ruin her life. This was not a cheap hentai manga where the girl would agree with such a disgusting request. Ryoko would rather have her work life ruined than her body. And the bastard indeed ruined her career. He fired her and badmouthed her to all other companies. She couldn't even find a job anymore. Subconsciously, Ryoko entered a bookstore without noticing. She didn't remember walking here, but she felt at home. It was inside a bookstore where her passion started. She looked at the mangas with a longing look. It was then that she saw a manga with a blonde-haired boy in orange clothes. She was curious and started reading. And the more she read, the more she had fun reading. I would love to work producing this manga, Ryoko thought longingly. She saw the company that published the manga and searched for it online. She saw it wasn't located in Sakura City. This is it. I can have a new beginning in a new city. I will not give up. Even if I cannot produce anime, I can work in this company as an editor or something else. Ryoko became spirited again. I will go to Elf-Fire City. Ryoko screamed, scaring the customers of the shop. And like that, greedy vultures and a hopeful girl would arrive in Elf-Fire City sometime later.